Hello, and thank you for joining us again. Like we've been following us in our previous episode or videos rather, we've been discussing so much about the origin of the Quran, the authenticity of the Quran, the divine transmission of the Quran, and how perfect the Quran has been. Now we are focusing on the Quran as a final perfect revelation. This is the daily claim of the Muslim Ummah. And they did not just form this by themselves, they get this idea from the Quran. And it said in Surah 5 of the Quran, verse 3, it clearly said that this day, according to Allah, I have perfected for you your religion, completed my favor upon you, and approved for you Islam as the religion acceptable by me. End of quote. That is Surah to Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 3 of the Quran. Just read. So, according to Islam, Islam does not merely claim revelation, it claims finality and perfection. So, you see, so based on this, of course, you can see, unlike in Islam, in Christian theology, perfection belongs to God alone. So, scriptures point toward God only, it does not inherit divine infallibility. So the Muslim Ummah, in the other hand, they don't see things like that. They direct and they transfer perfection onto the text itself. As a result, this happens. One, the Quran cannot fail without Allah failing because they make the book as a Quran to be the perfect, preserved, and authentic word for word of Allah. So if, like we said in the previous videos, we find anything, one thing in the Quran for any reason, either spelling error, either translation error, whatever it is within the Quran, it would therefore mean that it is Allah that have failed to do what he promised. For instance, Allah is believed not is believed to protect his Quran, his word, and everything that Allah had ever spoken, ranging from the Torah, the Torah, the Injil, and the Zabur, we are said to have been sent or delivered from Allah to mankind. That is in chapter 5 of the Quran, verse 48 of the Quran. So if Allah failed to protect any of either Injil, Zabur, or Torah, then Allah have failed because he had promised to protect everything according to chapter 15, verse 9 of the Quran. And that is why it is clearly established that the Quran cannot fail without Allah failing because it has claimed to be perfect and it comes from Allah, and therefore it must remain perfect without any blemish in any form. That is that. And the second point is the fact that the text cannot err without undermining the divine perfection. So in any form, if we find any, like we said, there will be a challenge for the Muslim Ummah. And that is what we be looking at on daily basis. This is a theological decisive and it's very risky for the Muslim Ummah. And that is what and why they ended up forming a theory or a doctrine called Tanzil, the doctrine of Tanzil. What does doctrine of Tanzil focuses on? It actually a theory which did say that the Quran was sent down. So to make it look perfect, to make it look untouched, uncorrupt, it has to be ascribed as sent down using one of the verses in the Quran to establish that. And the verse that was used is verse 3 of Surah 244, which did say, or literally, that indeed we sent it down during a blessed night. So the Quran is confirming here, or is saying that it was actually sent down. It was not authored, it was not written. And therefore, since it was sent and it was dictated to Muhammad word for word, according to the previous verse we've read, it therefore means that there can be no corruption, no mistake, no error. Even if it's of spelling, there shouldn't be any error in any form. And that is it. Now, This is important because Allah had claimed in Surah 15, chapter 15, verse 9. He said, we alone send down the reminder, and indeed we will be its guardian. Themselves, Allah himself will guide the Quran, being the reminder, being the completer, being the perfecter, being everything. You see? So according to this doctrine, there was no human involvement in the origin of the Quran, no scribal process, no prophetic shaping, no editorial development, no historical evolution, and therefore subsequently no human kind of influence at the end of the day. So Islam's claim is not progressive revelation, but rather it's a perfect delivery of a pre-existing eternal text as we have it today in the Quran, because it is believed to be a copy of the mother of the book in paradise, according to chapter 43, verse 3 and 4. At least we have a verse to back it up that the Quran did not only emanate or come from God, but it has its original copy, and it was copied from that down to it was fetched. I don't know whether I can use the word copy. It was fetched from the original one and then sent down to mankind through Muhammad, and that is it. So you see, from this you can now see why the struggle to make the Quran remain alive, remain authentic, remain valid, and remain perfect is being made by the Muslim Ummah on daily basis. So this is just what we've just presented to you, but we want you to look at it. If the Muslims will want us to continue to believe what does, because going forward, you keep seeing the mistakes, the things that we've seen in the Quran that is contradictory, that is questionable, that is worrisome, that is disturbing, yet the Muslims want us to believe that it was directly from Allah and there is no flaw in it. For instance, in Surah 2, the first surah of Surah Al-Fatiha of the Quran, we see from verse 5 and 6 telling us that Allah should lead us on the right path. Allah lead us on the right path. So we wonder, could Allah have been the one speaking there and still saying he wants to be led by Allah on the right path? You know, these are questionable things that ordinarily you should be observed, and you should observe and try to raise your concerns. But then we are focusing on the authenticity before we come down to the real analysis back to back of what the Quran is and what it is not, and what the Muslims have been chanting over the years, wanting us to hear and believe about the Quran, and what we can see for ourselves from the Quran that is completely not true, unacceptable, and it cannot be reconciled with logic or even with history. So that is it for today. Thank you till we hear from you again. Bye for now.